In this video, I will describe what pre-registration is. I will start off by explaining the details of a pre-registration, describe the benefits it brings, discuss any concerns around its application, and then finish off with some practical tips how to actually use it. So first of all, what does pre-registration mean? Pre-registration means to describe the details of your study before you actually conduct the study. So for example, what is the target population? What is your sample size? What statistical tools will you be using? What is your research question? And what are your hypotheses where applicable? You write all these details into a document and upload in an online registry. It will there be given a timestamp and a registration number. You can make this pre-registration, also called pre-analysis plan, immediately available to others to find, or you can keep it private until you've published your research. Pre-registrations are more common in quantitative theory testing work, but they can be applied in any type of study, including qualitative studies and also modeling studies. What you do in any type of pre-registration is you specify the aims of your research, how you will go about creating or accessing data, and what your approach to data analysis is. For quantitative studies, you normally also specify your key outcome variables, your statistical analysis, including how you will deal with outliers and missing data, and any concrete hypotheses you are testing in your studies. Templates exist for any type of research, for example, qualitative work, quantitative studies, and also secondary data analysis. So why might you want to pre-register your study? One of the biggest benefits is that it adds credibility to your results. If you have pre-registered your study, so you set in advance how you will analyze your data and have a timestamp version to show this, no one can accuse you of using questionable research practices. So you cannot be accused of, for example, changing a hypothesis afterwards, or of deleting outliers in a certain way to get significant results, or just omitting certain results from your findings. Secondly, pre-registration helps to overcome the file drawer problem and mitigate publication bias. We, as in the academic community, think the journals favor significant, novel, exciting findings. And in fact, it's known that journals do tend to rather publish those studies than null effects. However, this reduces the efficiency of science, because others might try to run the same study again that has already been shown not to work, and hence we just waste time and resources on this. Also, not publishing null results means that existing findings are given greater credibility, because anything that might go against them and might not replicate them is not being published. Of course, before you design a new study, you won't go through every pre-registration out there in the web to see what has been done already. However, a systematic review might just do that. So pre-registration offers a transparent catalog of all the kind of research that has been planned and then has been done. Some journals now even allow a publication form that's called registered reports. In those ones, you submit a very, very detailed pre-registration plan and say exactly what you will be doing, and the journal provisionally commits to accepting your paper after you have got your results, without knowing what those actually look like. Finally, pre-registration has direct benefits to you, the researcher. It really helps you to think through your study before you start collecting the data, so you can spot any mistakes before you spend the time and effort to collect the data. It also helps to front load a lot of the work. So because you plan your analysis before you actually do it, once you have the data, it's very easy to just run the analysis. For example, I was recently doing a study using secondary data, and the dataset had hundreds of variables that I could have used as predictor in my regression analysis. But because I planned my analysis, because I looked from a theoretical point of view which variables would be expected to matter, I was able to plan this well in advance, and then when I had the data and I ran my analysis, I knew exactly what to do. So instead of spending lots of time building lots of different models, I just knew which model to build and run and look at the results. Sometimes it happens that you pre-specify a study, but something doesn't quite work when it comes to analysis. Maybe the data are distributed differently than you would have expected. Maybe you have fewer cases of a certain characteristic, so you need to change something. And that's perfectly fine, as long as you note in any publications how and why you deviated from your pre-specification. One concern that sometimes arises around pre-registration is how it fits with more exploratory type of analysis. And that's perfectly fine. So you can, in the same study, you can pre-register some parts and then also conduct some additional exploratory research. As long as you specify in your manuscript which parts have been pre-registered and which parts have been purely exploratory, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes we do study where we do purely exploratory work. So for example, we might fit different models to the same data to see which model fits best. So in this case, your pre-registration might focus on the aims of the study, how you will access and clean the data, and which metrics you will be using to decide which model is the best. So whilst you might not specify exact analysis of your data, all the other benefits of pre-registration still apply. Let's finish off with some practical tips on how to do pre-registration. So the very latest you will pre-register your study is before you access the data. Though ideally you would do it much earlier at the design stage so you can plan the study in the best possible way. So when you want to do a pre-registration, the first thing you do is to identify a suitable template. For example, the Open Science Framework webpage lists various templates. Then you open this document and you will be first to ask to specify a title, the contributors, the research aims, and then depending on the type of study, for example, the hypothesis you will be testing, statistical analysis planned, how you will deal with missing data, how you will be dealing with outliers, and for example, how you code up categorical variables. Once you've filled in all the details, you can either press the submit button and then this will be sent to a registry and given an identifier so that others can look at this. Or sometimes you also just have an offline document that you then upload online to a registry. There are plenty of resources available online that give you further information about pre-registration. We have put together a table that gives you an overview of the most common templates to use for pre-registration. To sum up, pre-registration of studies means to specify in advance how data will be treated and analyzed before you collect or access the data. This has multiple benefits. So for example, it adds credibility to your findings. It also helps to spot any issues with the study design before you actually conduct the study. And then finally, it helps to mitigate bias in academic publishing.